Anyway, look, we're not here to talk about that. Steve, why are we here right now?
Oh, I thought we were here to play games, but apparently we're meant to be chatting to somebody tonight as well, I think. So
We
we've got somebody coming to visit us. Is that right?
Look, yeah, we've got a guest, everybody. So I hope you've got a beverage. I hope your shoes are off and you're comfortable. You've got a pillow that you can nudge up against and just sit back and relax because for the first, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes or something, we're going to chat with our our boss, the CEO, the founder, the creative director of Sirenscape. That's right. I'm talking about Ben Loomes. Ben himself is here, and he's an amazing person. And I'm not just saying that because he signs my paychecks. He is also a really cool person. Ben is awesome. And so we're going to be chatting with Ben about a couple of things. Yeah, that's Ben. Ben is the emote of "I can't even," which is one of my favorite emotes.
Which is the face he quite often actually kind of pulls when one of us two put suggestions to him.
You know, it does happen a little bit. Oh, my. Benjamin Loomes, how the heck are you, buddy? Welcome.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm very well, actually. Lovely. It's a beautiful morning here in Sydney, and not in Sydney, in Australia, on the east coast of Australia. I'm actually down in Kangaroo Valley. We've escaped the blooming pandemic that's happening up in
Oh,
my
man.
home city.
Yeah, that
And
you've got a place to hide. So there's that.
we do absolutely. And look, we are out in the country in Australia, so the internet is potentially good. So we shall see if I become a pixelated monster, then we'll blame a kangaroo that just jumped past and jumped on the waves. I don't know things, but yeah, it's beautiful. It's a lovely day. I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. If you follow Ben on Facebook, you've been putting up some photos that look amazing, like just really good stuff. So, and there might be some of those coming through on our social media. Maybe we'll see.
You've kind of got the rest of us quite jealous, actually, because even though we're kind of pretty summertime, I mean, we saw out your window earlier today, and what was it, 7:30 in the morning? It was already kind of brighter and sunnier than we've had it.
Yes, it is. It is beautiful down here, and there's some lovely fresh air. It has been chilly. It's been chilly when it goes below 10 degrees C. If you want to translate that into normal American temperatures, kind of we panic us Australians because like what? And yeah, so there's been some very chilly mornings, but yeah, not actually below freezing or anything like that. Crazy that would be another planet altogether.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
let me just take this time right now to let everybody know that chili in Australia is way different than chili everywhere else. So there's
That's
that.
right, absolutely. Just imagine where I gather we're a bit like people from Florida or kind of like South California, kind of when you laugh at those people when about what they think is cold. We're very much the same in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, Ben, let's start off. Let's begin at the beginning. First of all, you're Ben Loomes, Benjamin Loomes.
Yes.
I call you Ben.
Ben Loomes, that's right.
Benjamin
Loomes is great on programs, on sort of programs, especially when I was an opera singer, because it's like longer than everyone else's name. It just pokes out.
It just
But
looks
yeah,
more
Ben to my
important.
friends.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's right.
So Ben, you started Sirenscape, which that's the whole reason Steve and I know each other is because of Sirenscape. I learned about Sirenscape when I worked at Paizo back in the days. And first of all, what is the impetus behind you getting Sirenscape up and running? Like what in your background said, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing"?
Yeah, well, I'm a musician. I was massive music nerd at school, piano player, sang in the choir, with all the cool kids. Was in the local theatre company, all that kind of amazing stuff. Yeah, lots of accompanying, composition. Did composition for my high school certificate. That's like the final kind of your O levels or whatever you call it. When you're sort of 17 or 18, did really well. Did a Bachelor of Music in Composition at university. And all along the same time with that, I was a tragic role player, massive fan. Tragic is a word in Strine that means extremely enthusiastic, almost to an embarrassing level. And it's one of the many words that I use quite often that people don't understand. But yes, big Dungeons and Dragons player from the Red Box when I was a little kid, and playing D&D, doing lots of music things, singing opera with Opera Australia. I was in the chorus of doing lots of shows there. Also singing lead roles with smaller companies, and very, very busy musician, very, very busy role player. And kind of just the lack of sound at the gaming table seemed weird to me. The fact that we were playing kind of with the sound of the buzzing fridge and kind of just the dog barking down the street and only words. It seemed very, very weird since you have sounds in music, in movies and, operas and things like that all the time.
So
That was the impetus.
It's the perfect two avenues that collide at the intersection of this is now Sirenscape, because you have the history of production and music and the know-how, and a lot of people don't know this, but Sirens, I say we like I'm a part of this. I don't do any of the sound creation at all. That's Steve and Ben and Barry and Chris. Like they're the ones that make the sounds that you listen to. I don't do any of that. But Sirenscape is a company almost. I think now all of it, but if not very close, is our own original compositions now. Ben, you do a lot of the music that we play. That's all original stuff. There was a time where some of it was just Creative Commons stuff, and like Creative Commons is an important thing for artists and stuff. But I think we've been slowly phasing that out, so that so a lot of the music you're hearing in Sirenscape, that's Ben. Like Ben is making that stuff. And I think Jaded Tempest, you're absolutely right, because here's the thing: I have played tabletop RPGs without Sirenscape, and it feels weird now. I think you're right. It's you just can't picture it now.
It's literally like watching a movie with the sound turned off. It doesn't make any sense anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I'll have a long day with Sirenscape, working with sound all day, especially if I'm creating something with a deadline because I left it a bit late. And then I'll get to a gaming session. I'm like, oh, let's just play, just pencils and paper. And I usually get about 20 minutes in. I'm like, I just feel like it's not really immersive and the emotional level's a bit suppressed. And like, can I just put on some sounds? And then suddenly it's all happening. So yeah, absolutely. Once you've done it, it's hard to go back.
Yeah, and go for it, Steve.
I was going to say the very original Sirenscape. Not only did you do the sounds and the music for, but you also wrote the coding and created the program, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah. So that's right. So I was wanting some sound at the gaming table, and so I put on probably. What have they been? CDs? Yeah, CD kind of audio soundtracks of movies. Used those for a little bit. I used some computer game music. But, especially movie music is contoured, as everyone knows, specifically to kind of moments that happen on the screen. If you imagine the Lord of the Rings bit where they end up ultimately cresting up over the mountain with the Fellowship theme. Da, 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 da. And kind of the whole of that movie music track guides to that one moment. And of course, once that leitmotif, which belongs to those characters in those moments, appears, instead of immersing the players in the moment, you're literally taking them out of immersion and putting them into the Lord of the Rings, and it becomes a joke. So I sort of started to cobble together some old music of my own with a bit of sound design, and I was using 15-minute loop tracks. And trying to make those, and you guys all know this. I'm not telling anything new, but that's what you do in an interview. You cobbled together those tracks, but they were very repetitive and always went round and were always the same every time I put them on. So I tried to make them longer and longer and longer. And I was dragging kind of dog noises into like an hour-long track and trying to randomize them. But then I'd kind of pull 5 in a sort of pattern and then just sort of copy them and paste them and paste them and paste them. So I didn't actually end up with a random pattern at all. It was always that same roof, roof, roof pattern, which quickly became recognizable and annoying. And once again, taking people out of immersion. And as Steve said, I was an amateur programmer. I still am an amateur programmer, strictly speaking. And one really interesting thing, which I haven't ever said in interviews before, so let's say it here. I was actually doing peripatetic teaching. So you go into a school and you sit in the room and the kids come out one by one and have a piano lesson. That was one of the things you do as a musician and a singer. And I took over a studio of a school where the teacher had obviously just been terrible and lost interest about 6 months ago. And the kids were all completely lost inspiration, didn't want to be there, didn't want to like sit up straight at the piano. Or I have to bend the fingers. And they were kind of turning up to the lessons about, and usually when you're a peripatetic teacher, maybe 1 in 7 or so kids doesn't come to the lesson just because they're sick, they're away, they forgot, they didn't bring their books, they have a sport thing, they have an exam. But this school was like literally half the kids were coming. So I had lots and lots of free time. So the first version of Sirenscape was literally written in the free time breaks where I was being paid to not have like Sonny Jim, who was meant to be coming to his lesson, but didn't bother coming for the 19th time that term. And, you ring his parents again and say, I'm so sorry, Sonny Jim didn't come to his lesson. They're like, no, never mind, blah, blah, blah. And I sat in the sun outside this room, in each of the kind of 50% of the time I had to spend at this silly school with the students not turning up, writing a version of Sirenscape in Python with Pygame as the audio engine, and WX Python giving me my Windows buttons and things. And you can look on our social media, and there's some screenshots of that original version, which was pretty bad. But certainly did the job. And in that one, the positioning and the reverb was built into each sound. So I made kind of your 10 dog woofs, but I sort of made them at a certain distance away, and I applied the reverb to the actual audio. So all Pygame could do is just play that audio back in stereo. So, that one particular dog was always off to the right a bit and, about 20 meters away and with a bit of echo off the mountains. Now Sirenscape just takes a completely dry sample and makes that randomized decision for distance and direction and applies the reverb dynamically on every playback. And that's something we did when real programmers took over the thing.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Cool.
You built it to begin. You are a real programmer. You made a thing that actually worked. So
right.
you're a real programmer.
Yeah,
it's fun.
yeah.
You got this.
That's right.
But other programmers came in with other ideas.
That's right. That's right. Who were better. I mean, who were different.
So it was the idea that there was something missing from your personal arsenal of what you wanted to see in a game. So you were like, fine, let's just do this. You had some trial and error. All of that stuff happened. Then, like you said, other programmers came in. They ended up doing this thing. And that's, now when you see what it is, and that like the post that Vicky put up today, about the different evolutions in your mind getting more and more blown as it goes is true. Like it is just amazing, like where you can mark the steps of how everything happened. How looking back now, how do you feel about where it was and where it is and all of that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I'll tell you another since we're having some reasons to turn up to these interviews, because I think as you do more of these interviews, Dan, I think Dan's always got this amazing relationship with people in the industry, and he's going to draw out some special info. So I know if he ever interviews Jason Bullman, the sort of stuff that's going to get spilt and backroom knowledge, Jason will relax and not realize that he's broadcasting. So yeah, so I was. Sirenscape was being shared as donationware on the internet, back between those two dates that you can see on that meme on Facebook, and people started asking for a version to run on their iPad. And iPads are written in what I call Objective Stupid, which is a special version of C# just for Apples, and it's just like, oh, I don't have to learn. It's like everything's just slightly different, and the conventions are all different. So I was doing an arts program with a guy called Graham Wood at that time, who was running an amazing opera program where we went into high schools and we wrote dramatic works, operatic works from scratch with kids over the course of 4 weeks, and then performed them at the end in a professional theatre, which was amazing. And kids taking
awesome.
risks, expressing themselves, and being allowed to write an opera about a pencil case where the projector's in love with the pen who's on the other side of the tracks, and and they end up murdering each other. Yeah, it was an amazing program. And so he's just this crazy entrepreneur who does a lot of environmental work and yeah, really, really cool arts work as well. Amazing guy. And I was there as a conductor and a composer and a project leader. And he made his money from What If, which was one of the first companies in the world to sell last-minute accommodation. Remember when that was a thing? And sort of one of the first companies to sell accommodation online at all. And he made an absolute mass out of that. And so he got his sort of start from tech. And so I thought he might know some computer programming people. So I approached him and literally asked him, did he have a tech contact? Did he have a program who might be interested in getting involved in helping me translate? And as an entrepreneur, I think he spends literally 3 hours a week with people asking him for money. And I don't know whether he was just so shocked that I literally hadn't gone to him and said, "Can I have some money because I want this thing?" I actually approached him in a complete way. He was like, "What are you talking about?" And so he asked me, what the heck I wanted to write, and he said, "Are there people who like this? Like what?" And then for him it was like, "What's tabletop gaming? Okay, good."
Oh wow.
And then pretty soon I suddenly found myself writing a business plan and how would this work, and is there an audience, and are there people who want to support this, and would people pay for it? And he was like, "This sounds like really, really interesting." And he's someone who is amazing and loves to give opportunities to people who are talented or have some talents and work hard and are honest, but don't necessarily have kind of the business opportunity. And that's musicians just all over the place. Like lots of passion, lots of ideas, but not necessarily a business pathway to sort of financial freedom or in fact any money at all. And so I've seen him do that with a lot of different people, and so but also he doesn't start companies that don't make any sense. So he did a really rigorous sort of analysis, and that's when we started the actual Sirenscape company. Which is that third row on that meme, and that's when the other programmers came in, and that was just incredible. And as you said, Dan, the program was pretty much written. The concept was there, the way the sound was distributed. I would have loved to be doing all the things that Sirenscape does now, including actually literally moving the sound past the listener and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And
it's super cool. So that opportunity, we all wouldn't be here where we are today without Graham. So good on him.
It was very shortly after the iPad version was out. That's when you also then approached Paizo, wasn't it? And we started doing Pathfinder content.
Oh,
which again was another big milestone.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another funny story. I mean, we went to Paizo with a version of the Sirenscape offline player that literally exploded. No, not like literally not exploded, but like metaphorically exploded after using it for like 14 minutes. And I went into a room with Eric Mona and said, "Will you look at my thing?" And he sat in the room and he was like, "Oh, this is amazing. This is so cool." And like every button that he pushed meant like the memory leak was more likely to tear the app apart and the frame rate go to 0 and bits fall off.
So wait, and are you watching him go nuts on this thing, and every time he pushes a button, are you like, "Oh, you got to stop doing this"? Like,
there's like this countdown: 40, 39, 38, 37, 32, 29, 30, 17, 16. In my brain, this countdown's going down. Tick, 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 And I mean, it worked, but it just didn't. It had some kind of fatal flaws, like software does, and it made it through. It survived. You could see the little program just go at the end, and and Eric was like, "This is amazing!" Like it made perfect sense to him. And Mike Kenway, who was their kind of third-party person at that time, amazing, fantastic, beautiful guy.
Yeah,
he said it's the the only time he ever sat in a meeting with Eric, and Eric just said it got shown something random because they must get shown just random stuff all the time. I've floats off the table, except I haven't made it float yet, but it will float. And he said it's the only time he's just seen Eric just go, "Yeah, that's great, that's good. Let's talk about this." That was really exciting.
Well, I mean that's Eric's forte is recognizing like some real potential stuff. Eric is so good at that. Like he is just amazing at that. And a quick story about Kenway. He was when I was working at Paizo, he was my first office roommate or whatever you call that. We shared an office. Super nice guy. I liked Kenway a lot. Kenway's cool. So really quick then. So that's kind of where we got a lot of Paizo doing stuff, which by the way we just released Malevolence and it's amazing, and we may or may not have some other stuff coming out later this year for 2 weeks, and we're very excited about that.
At the very least, read Malevolence. It's written by James Jacobs, who's literally my favorite author, who wrote my favorite module, Red Hat of Doom. The way he thinks about games is incredible. And if you want to learn some new words, there's lots of big words in the Malevolence.
We had the entire sound set for that was out on the same day as the PDF itself. So it's a great way to jump in.
At the very least, grab the PDF and read it, and you may well be very inspired to run it.
I think.
Jaded.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, James Jacobs was one of my favorite people to talk to at Paizo. Like, he's just so funny. But he's not, he's very unassuming, but he's super smart and very funny, and it's a great combination when you're talking to somebody. So there's that. Anyway, so now we built the empire of Sirenscape on sword clangs and fireballs and dragon roars and bugbears and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which leads us to this week. Obviously, we're releasing something that is right in that vein. What is the sound set we're releasing this week?
We're releasing a beautiful, relaxing, lovely, intimate romance sound set. Which is just really sweet and gorgeous and comforting.
So,
Literally.
what was the impetus of Romance? What started the idea to say, let's do this? Like, because it's very different than what we've done before.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Kari Scholtens, who's an amazing gamer, played on Sirenscape and Friends with me. Really, really fantastic role player. Writes great characters. Her character on Sirenscape and Friends wasn't very romantic. It was a half-orc who was fantastic. But she plays in all sorts of amazing games, including some great streams and things like that. And she literally just messaged me and says, I can't really find any music that's good for kind of, talky scenes, romance scenes, getting close to your friends scenes. There's some music which is nice, but a lot of the relaxing, beautiful music has a strong tinge of darkness to it, or kind of a really, really sad, melancholy feel. Is there anything? And I just went, heck, no. And so it was just because Carrie inspired me. I wrote a romance theme specifically for her and said, oh, look, you share it, you use it on your game, and we'll say it's Sirenscape content. I'll make you a custom sound set that's just visible to you, and you can use that. Were you going to say something, Steve?
I was just going to say, so she couldn't use any of the beautiful music that you composed for Avernus. Some
That's right.
music there.
That's right. Yeah. No, it didn't quite fit the bill. I love you, Shirley. Oh, Marjorie, you're wonderful. Oh, but Shirley.
Just guitar.
Yeah. So I wrote that for her, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really, really good. And then just between you and us, I felt kind of guilty because I'd written literally a romance theme for Kari. So I kind of looked over at my wife, who was, who we worked together. I'm like, crap. Okay, I better write a song for Karen because I feel quite strongly about her. So then I wrote a really beautiful song for Karen. And now it's weird because it's like, anyway, yeah, there's two romance themes in there for different women, but anyway, that's fine. Fine. So there's a really, really beautiful, beautiful song for Karen. Suddenly I've got two romance themes, and then there's an Iliosa theme that Eldon, my son, wrote for whatever that adventure path is called. Yes, Crown of Rides of the Crown of Thing, the Crimson Throne. That's it, and it's just really beautiful. And then Barry Dublé, there's a sort of a love theme in Strahd, which is lovely, which is one of those ones that is tinged with darkness. I put all those four together, and I'm like, I like date night. So then I went through and I made some scenes, and we've actually made a restaurant scene with beautiful, chinking glassware and a little tea light candle, ablaze on the thing, and people talking softly. And I made a beautiful garden. And we made an Elysium, which is kind of like a paradise, with a glowing, shifting, slightly magical sky, and even a museum date, because nerds go to dates at museums.
Museum's a great place to go. So let me ask you this. Yeah. So here's the thing. You're describing visual things in an audio platform. When you're doing this, are you walking through these? Are you picturing this whole thing and walking through and saying this needs to be right here?
Yeah, of course.
Are you doing that? Is that usually how it works?
Yeah, absolutely, totally. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? I suppose you're imagining the scene, and human beings are visual, aren't we? And I suppose when we hear the sound, again, the reverse happens. And maybe that's why the sound is so effective, because it, evokes kind of the images in our head. Yeah, I mean, I think, so in that restaurant, I'm sitting at the table, I'm imagining what's in front of me. If it's I imagine what the glassware is like. Is the glassware, for instance, big coarse pottery, in which case it's going to go chonk? Or is it finest glassware? How expensive is this restaurant? Which plays into sort of what the waiter's going to be wearing. Are they wearing a thrown over, hide of a owlbear or something, or are they wearing fine wear? So yeah, absolutely. The restaurant sounds a certain way, and that's because of what objects are in there.
That's interesting.
Maybe I had thought of that before, but yeah. And the museum. What's on the floor of the museum? On the floor of the museum is polished marble, and that's going to affect the ambience. It's going to affect what voices sound like in that space. It's going to affect the way that footfalls, sound on that space, and all those sorts of things play into it. Totally.
Wow.
Yeah, that's certainly the way that when I'm building my ones, that's how I kind of do. I kind of conceptualize the environment. You kind of build it and put the sounds in that you want, and then you listen to it, and then you start to pick up on sounds that are missing, what's not making it quite how you want, and you just start to add in those layers and those textures and build it up. That said, I've never built a romance one, so mine are normally I do Call of Cthulhu and Cyberpunk, so mine are normally a lot more dark and dystopian.
That's right, yeah, horrible. Yeah.
I imagine it's a similar principle.
I mean, there are lovely places in Sirenscape, but often when I'm doing like boring CEO-y things like spreadsheets, I'll often do it from the deck of my starship because I like my starships. Either the shipboard sound set, which is one of the first ones, I think it was literally the first sci-fi sound set we ever made, or some of the Pathfinder starships, which are super, super cool. The Castathar and things, which are like the Apple of starships. It was very, once again, slick white surfaces, rounded, plastic formed, sort of consoles and beautiful buttons, which are just touch, as opposed to the Vesk starship, which is like, actual physical kind of big flapper switches from the 80s and kind of more space shuttle, era interfaces. So definitely makes a very, very different world.
That's interesting. So then that affects the acoustics, but you wouldn't know that unless you picture yourself there. Well, it all makes sense. I never thought about making like a virtual space and say, well, how does this sound now? It's very interesting.
Yeah. And people know when it sounds wrong. People intuitively know that it sounds wrong. They can't necessarily tell you why it sounds wrong, and it certainly does sound wrong until you get it right, doesn't it, Steve? It's an amazing process when you're building this stuff. It's like wrong, awful, wrong.
Totally break the immersion. Just even one sound that's just got the wrong reverb on it, or just something that just you can hear a repeat. I don't know. One of our, I think it's one of our older port sound sets. Every so often there's a little boy that shouts out. And it just, the more I hear it, the more all I can fix it on is that one sound. So I removed it because it was there. But just the more you hear it, the more it just starts to play and to feature in your mind.
Or if there's a bit of voice acting that's slightly off, if there's someone who just has a passing comment on the street and it just doesn't sound genuine, they just didn't quite nail the delivery. Like, oh yes, it was exciting, wasn't it? Kind of thing. It's like, oh, suddenly your mind is ding. And that takes you out of the immersion rather than putting you in. And thank goodness it's possible to remove those sounds. Every now and then, here's an interesting one. We use Walla from all around the world. So we use Mexican, German, Chinese. And what you do with Walla is the general sound of people chatting is you make sure there's no major specific big vocal events, like someone reasonably close to the microphone or something. But if you've got a native speaker, say I'm not a Chinese native speaker, Mandarin or whatever, so I can't necessarily hear kind of the individual word that might be standing out. Obviously, it sounds like a string of syllables to me. And so I had a Mandarin speaker contact me on support the other day and just say that like literally the word bus stop is there and it's just as clear as a bell and it's just standing out of everything. So it's walla 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 bus stop. It's like some guys just walked past and he said bus stop and it's like 3 syllables or whatever, and I haven't understood, I haven't removed it. And of course with Sirenscape, very fortunately, I just say just turn it off, just switch it off, resave your mood, without that Walla going. And here's a German Walla that you're definitely not going to understand anything, that's in there. Which is super, super cool, really, really interesting. And thank goodness you can make those changes and get rid of the sounds that don't work for you. So birds, Satine Phoenix. Sorry, I'll let you go. No, Satine Phoenix. Just hates birds in audio when she's trying to concentrate on roleplay. And so basically there's many birds in almost all of any scene that's outdoor has some degree of birds. And the first thing she does when she shoots up at something new is she just goes to turn it on, turn off all the birds and resave. It's it's really, really cool.
Well, I mean, and that's a good thing about the the interface is that you can do that. You can be like, I don't want any of this stuff. Let me just resave this as a custom mood. We're all good. But that does actually bring up an interesting point. Is there something that you eventually had to go back to because you were like, oh, it's fine. But then it just keeps sticking out. And you're like, okay, I got to go back and fix this thing or remove this thing or something just because the more you hear it, the more you're like, man, I don't know about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably happened lots and lots of times, and nothing's jumping to mind, probably because I've done it like 20 times already, and that's what's great is we can edit a sound set just so easily and just push an update to our users.
Yeah.
I'll think about it. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing standing out to me, but there is. We've definitely replaced music in the past, and there's an oboe solo at the moment in Sirenscape somewhere, which I won't point to because everyone will start hearing it. And the synthesis oboe's a little tricky to do, kind of synthesis wise. And my daughter's a really beautiful oboist, and yeah, it's every time I hear that track, I'm like, this could be a real oboe, and it's not an oboe. When you say, yeah, you go, Steve.
I know Masks No Lototep, the London chapter. One of the sound sets was Southampton Docks. And there was there actually on the docks, there was just one little sample, was just a voice that when I first made it, I really liked it. But the more I listened to it, the more I disliked that one little piece. So like you say, it's so easy to go in, just remove it, update the files, and for the end user, they don't even notice any difference. It's just that sound is just plays smoother now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And often it's because users tell me, because you stop hearing this stuff sometimes yourself, or you don't contact a particular piece of content, and a user will email and say, this accent is like inappropriate culturally or something like that, and you just go back and you listen, and you're like, okay, bloop, delete, and that's really, really great to do. So definitely, if you're a user and you're watching this and you're hearing a sound in Sirenscape, let us know, because it's it's super, super useful to have fresh ears on stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Support it at sirenscape.com. Feel free. So that's interesting. I feel like when Romance first came onto the old planning board, I was like, woof, what are we going to do with this? Like, how is this going to work? But I got to say, it is a really good set. The music is beautiful.
Yeah.
And we've gotten people, just from the announcement that I did on Monday, when I put that announcement up, people were like, this is great because I was just thinking about this. Like, I would like to have that emotional, heartfelt moment. And so, it's just a testament to the breadth of the content that you can do and all that kind of stuff. So
I put on 4 Weddings and a Funeral soundtrack and just played that at myself for like the whole soundtrack. And then I just sat down at the keyboard and started composing. And so, if you haven't listened to 4 Weddings and a Funeral soundtrack, and you'll notice the similarity, sort of hit that same kind of arrangement. It's actually a bit of a trope, the kind of the piano solo, cello, of course, is doing solo in there, because like, everybody loves the cello. And then just a wash of really, really warm strings, and it's very, very much romantic harmony. So very, very, very much Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2, the slow movement. I sort of reached out to that, gently slipping chromatic harmony. So the movements in the chords are often just happening by one semitone. And that's what creates that kind of yearning, warm, rich, luscious, relaxing sound, and makes it really, really hit those emotional points.
Let me just say really quick, Robert Hartley, thank you so much for rating with 98 viewers. What is happening?
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And just in case you missed it, we're chatting with Ben Loomes, the CEO and creative director and founder of Sirenscape. We were able to get a hold of him somehow. I'm not sure how. It was just dumb luck that we could. Wow, thank you so much for rating. I really, really appreciate that. The channel really appreciates that. So, Ben, knowing that right now, if you're a subscriber, you have access to this thing.
Yes.
If you're not a subscriber,
Absolutely.
that's cool. It'll be in the store on Friday, and you can get it there. But, it's just easier to be a subscriber and get it. But what kind of when people get this thing and they start using it in their games, Fancy Unicorn, thank you so much for the reminder. Thank you for all the follows. I'm trying to do this thing and act like we've got a conversation while at the same time not noticing everything that everybody's doing in the chat right now. Thank you so much for all of the follows. I'm flustered. I don't think this has ever happened before. Thank you. Wow.
Rating know what Sirenscape is? I mean, it's like a thing. Did they know that? Did they need the lift spiel right now?
Well, I mean, look, if you're not familiar with Sirenscape, it is it is the immersive, amazing app that you can use to play along with your role-playing games, your board games, just about every platform that you play for RPG. We make some official stuff for it. It's D&D, it's Pathfinder, it's Call of Cthulhu, it's Cyberpunk Red. It is so many things. Starfinder is in there too, and it's basically a soundboard, but it's made with the DM in mind, with the GM in mind, so that as you're playing, you can change up the sounds on the fly. So if you're in a murky dungeon and you've got water dripping and it sounds really gross as you're walking, but then suddenly you climb a ladder and now you're in a tavern. Boom, push one button, you're now in the tavern. And we like to think that it adds a lot of immersion to your game. Let's see. Evil Dice Monkey. Yes, you can ask a question. Did we see an uptick in users during the pandemic? Noria, thank you so much for loving Sirenscape.
And for mentioning Erdenston, they've done some great music for our sound sets as well.
Yeah,
so it's awesome. Thank you.
So I compose a lot of the music, absolutely, and Barry composes, and Steve and Chris compose, but we also commission outside composers as well. It's great just to bring that fresh voice in, absolutely. And Erdenstein have done a fantastic job with some of our Pathfinder stuff, which is super, super cool. And we've just engaged them, in fact, to do the next thing that we're doing, which we can't mention what it is, which is very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Did we see an uptick of users during the pandemic? Hugely, absolutely, yeah. There was a lot of people. If you look at the meme that's on our Facebook feed right now, it talks about the different dates that we did thing, and we did a certain thing in like literally January 2020 where we released a version of Sirenscape that you can use for remote play. So if you're not with your players, they just run a little applet on their system, and the sounds come straight out of not garbled through Discord or anything like that, but straight out on their desktop in full quality. And we did that just right in January, and yeah, we got a huge flood of people having to jump on remote play because of the craziness and awfulness that was in the world at the time. So yeah, we've had a lot of really, really great support during the pandemic. So thank you.
And as Vicky's just pointed out, Robert Hartley, who's just raided the channel, he was actually playing in the game on Saturday that was with all the people from some cool people. It was the Antipodean one shot. You got Vividal, the Dirt League, and some amazing players were in that game.
Oh yeah, Rob. Yeah. Great guy.
So
fantastic guy. Yeah.
Also,
awesome. Thank you.
If you saw the beginning of the interview, you would know that Kari was a part of the beginning of this whole thing, needing music, and I'm pretty sure that's I think that's Schultz C2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody think.
Hey, Kari.
Yeah, how's it going, Kari?
Everyone thank Kari. It's your fault that we have beautiful, sickly, gorgeous, lovely, romantic music in there because you're such a lovely person.
So Fluffy Seagull, man. So this is the thing about the online player. It's a standalone player. It doesn't matter what VTT you're using. People put the little the app on their computer or whatever, and then it runs separately from the VTT. So you can use any VTT you want, and then this runs separately from all of that. So you get to use whatever one you want, and you can still enjoy.
Go to sirenscape.com/online, or just search Sirenscape online. You'll find the page there, and there's explanations of how it works. The Dungeon Master can just control the sound through any browser, basically, so you can run Chrome on your iPad or whatever, and then everyone just has a little applet sitting on their PC, and the sound comes straight out of there. It's really simple and quick to set up, and there's videos showing how to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, really cool.
So we've got about 10 more minutes before we're supposed to take a break, but I don't think we're in a hurry. If you have a question for Ben, just make sure you tag at Sirenscape, and I'll be able to see it. We're more than happy to do some Q&A right now. If you have questions, we're there. So.
Yeah, do you want to moderate the questions, or do you want me just to see them in the chat and answer them, Dan?
Fancy Unicorn. So yes, absolutely. So usually what'll happen when we're doing, so Ben does live DJ with a lot of people like D&D Productions and G4, which we're going to talk about something coming up on Saturday that you're definitely going to want to watch. So a lot of times what Ben will do is he will create his online player, get the game going, give everybody in the game the link to join his game, and then he'll just run sound and they can all hear it. It does not have to be the GM. It can be some other person can run the sound for everybody, and then it all plays natively on their own machine, and they can turn the volume down, they can turn the volume up. They get to control that on their end, so that if Ben is like, I want this to be super loud, but let's say someone's like, I don't want it to be super loud, they can turn it down, and they get to kind of determine their own experience.
Yep.
And Fluffy Seagull Man, no, only the actual DM or the host needs to have a subscription. For everybody else, they can just sign up for a free account, sign up to your game, and then you can control all that sound, but they get to hear it all on their system. And they control the volume, but you can control what they actually hear.
Yeah.
And as a dungeon master, when I run a game, I share links for the spells and things that my players like to trigger. So Steve on his stream deck has all the different spells for his sorcerer and a setup. So he just pushes that button, and that explosive destroying everybody's spell sound gets mixed in with the rest of the feed, which is super cool.
Fancy Unicorn. Yeah. So if if a mod is controlling the volume that's going into the stream, they would be able to do that. Yes. If they're in front of that machine that is getting the sound, they would be able to fix that level. And yeah, and in fact, if you're a streamer that's in another game and you're running online, you can control your own sound too on your own personal stream, because maybe you don't want it so noisy, maybe you want it less so that you can actually talk to people in between and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, everybody gets to control their own volume. And yeah, and like Steve said, if you're joining a game, it's totally free to do that. You just have to create an account and download the online player, connect it to your account that you just created all for free, and then you're good to go. A lot of times, and I think that this actually happens a lot. I think a lot of times a group of players will get together, have the GM or the DM get the subscription, and then everybody kind of chips in for everything because they're all enjoying the the fun and all that kind of stuff. So
Chips in like you do with the chips.
Yes, yeah.
Otherwise, you die. If you don't help, you die.
Yeah, if you don't help.
Game anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, Aftermath. We actually, if you've not seen, also we offer a lot of free stuff. You can get the offline player without even registering. You can download that. It comes with 10 free sound sets that I'm pretty sure we put together in a way that said this is going to cover a lot of material in an RPG, and that's totally free.
It's pretty much just a curated list, so it's got everything that you need from a kind of a basic battle. You've got a couple of taverns in there. You've got a spooky forest, the fantasy village is in there. So it's got all the kind of the tropes that you need for your kind of a fairly generic fantasy game straight away free, and you don't even need to register for that. You can just literally install the app, and those sets are there for you to use straight away.
I think one thing I thought would be really fun, but it does take some planning. I thought it'd be fun to do a stream where Ben was actually just live DJing on the fly, and we would give out the code. So if everybody downloaded the online player, right, then we could actually have Ben. There was talk about for one of the conventions doing a live build of a monster, and we never got to do it. It never worked out, but we wanted to do it to where it's like Ben is basically there being like, okay, what kind of monster do we want to do? But here's the thing: if you had the online player, we would put the link in the chat, so then you could connect your player and you could hear what he's doing when he's done and starts playing it and stuff. So if that's something you guys want to do, let us know. We'll put that up. We'll do that. That'd be really fun. So because I think we tried to do it for some convention and something happened. I can't remember.
We did it at Gen Con. We did it in front of like a crowd of 50 people or whatever at Gen Con. We built the monster. We concepted the monster before the game. We did some auditions for voice actors, and this very frightening like 14-year-old girl who was fantastic got up and she did the voice of this monster, and she went. And then I mixed it into the sound set, and then I tried to basically kill the Paizo staff with this monster, and it was super duper fun. It worked really, really well. So there's a video somewhere around that, so maybe we'll share that on our socials because that's a great game.
Yeah, we should find that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Millie, Sirenscape Virtual Con. I mean, here's the thing: we are gutted that we're not doing conventions. Like we're definitely not going to, but we're all in different countries, so that's like the one time we'd get to see each other, and we haven't been able to do that in a long time, and it makes a huge difference. So a virtual con would be cool, though. Yeah, that would be cool.
And yeah, Evil Dice Monkey, the Dice Stormers use Sirenscape quite a lot. Ben is actually one of the members of Dice Stormers, so yeah, they use the app a lot in their games. And
we do. I personally, in terms of cons, I like the idea of everyone in the world having to come to the Hobbiton set in Matamata in New Zealand, and us playing in the Green Dragon. That would be amazing.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so the like I really like those piezo panels that they'll do where it's like build something. It would be great
Mm.
if we could sit in with those, and as the
Mm.
monster's getting built, Ben or Steve or somebody could
Mm.
be back behind the scenes listening and being like, "All right, let's put that in. All right, let's put that in." That
Mm.
would be awesome. So by
Mm.
the end of it, you've
Mm.
got this monster that's all statted up, and it's got
Yeah.
sounds.
Sounds as
That
well.
would be
Mm.
great.
That'd be really good.
Oh,
Especially if you even had the recording gear there, so you could even get some of the panelists to actually lend their voices to that creature.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that would be
absolutely.
great.
All doable on the fly. Yeah, and it'd be a great tutorial just to show just how easy it is for everyone to do it themselves. So yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And
Aftermath, if you go to our Twitter, there is a pinned post on that. And yes, it is, as long as you're giving the proper credit, and that's important because we try to do everything Creative Commons, which means you can use it, but you have to give credit to make sure that it's good. We have everything you need to put in there. And whether it's like whether it's a Nightbot like auto chat that goes in if you're streaming, if it's in the description of your YouTube video, if it's mentioned during your podcast, that kind of stuff, then yeah, absolutely. We want people to enjoy and help their productions do well. So yeah, check that out. If you still have questions, definitely email us. But there's a
Yep.
pretty good post that's pinned on Twitter, and do that. So well, here's the thing, Ben. I'm going to let you take this question from Millie because now it gets legal, and I am not 100% sure.
So basically you're using Sirenscape under Creative Commons attribution. If you use any of Sirenscape's sounds or use the Sirenscape machine to run the sounds, then we love you to give us a shout out and say, and all the details are there on that post on Twitter. You know, thanks as always. Sirenscape sounds run by by Sirenscape. I can speak English. Um, um, Matt Mercer, in fact, does that. Almost all the sounds he uses on Critical Role, he uses from computer games that he appeared in. So he uses the soundtracks from those that he's got permission from the lovely people he worked with, and he voice acted on them. But he uses Sirenscape to organize and to run his sounds on Critical Role. If you're then using your own sounds as well, you can credit yourself. Of course you can. You'd say sound and music done by Sirenscape, including sounds by the awesome me. What you could also do, Millie, is actually share some of those creations. If you make a particularly awesome, beautiful environment or a monster, you can share that as community content. That becomes available to all our Super Siren subscribers, and everyone can enjoy them too. So push that as a suggested thing, and then get in contact with support and say, hey, make this live, make this live, make this live, make this live.
Yeah.
We'll check it out and make sure it all is legal and all the samples are all credited correctly. And then everyone will get to enjoy it too.
And that does assume that you've got permission to use all the sounds that you've put in there.
Yes.
So there is that. Just keep in mind, if you've got the permission to use those sounds, then yeah, absolutely, you should get credit for that because that's the thing. And if you haven't discovered yet, Ben is definitely an old school artist, musician, because he is all about making sure that people get their credit and that it's as open source as possible and all of that sort of thing. So, which, again, I think, with Ben wanting to enhance his own personal games as things keep going, it's like, well, if we can help somebody enhance their stream, enhance their podcast, and all of that sort of thing, we're all about that. So if you have any questions, definitely hit us up on support, because Steve is there, Ben is there, they're ready to help you, because we want to help you guys get this thing moving. Like that's the big one. We want to make sure that you can do that. So wow, that was good. That was wow. Okay, first of all,
That was awesome,
Rob,
wasn't
thank
it?
you so much for the raid. Thank you so much for all the followers, and definitely thank you for everybody that hung out and had really good questions. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clip that. We'll put that up on YouTube because that was a really good moment. And if you still have questions, we want to answer those. We'll give it a few more minutes. But if you still have questions, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Facebook. Definitely send us an email, support@sirenscape.com, because we are here to help. We definitely want to make sure that you get the answers you need. And most of the time, you're going to get an answer from Steve or Ben. Those are the two that are probably going to do it. So there's that.
Yeah.
I just do the boring marketing stuff, so I don't do any of the fun stuff like that, like help people. Ben, thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there before we take a break?
You know what, Dan? A lot of our marketing is beautiful, and we get so many comments on our Facebook ads about how, oh my God, you actually targeted me with something I actually want to know about in a non-offensive way, and the art is awesome. So well done too.
Oh,
It's not
thank
boring.
you.
It is hard work. Before you came along, I was building the Facebook ad campaigns, and I know how soul destroying it is. It just takes so long.
Yeah.
And every system is just completely different, and Facebook will just randomly completely change their entire system. So getting that message out there is a huge challenge. You do a great job.
Well,
doing
I
that.
would totally second that.
thank
And
you.
you
I
got me
wasn't-
last week when it was my birthday stream, and you kind of gave me the praise. So it's our turn to get you now, Dan.
No,
But
no,
yeah, you do
it's-
an absolutely
we're good.
awesome job of the marketing. So
Yeah.
whenever you see kind of Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, it's either Dan or Vicky. But obviously, all the marketing side is Dan. He's absolutely amazing at his role.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Fluffy Seagull, man, that's our hope. Like some really amazing content coming out for RPGs. And you've got so many cool like VTT innovations that are happening. And a lot of people, like the first time I saw someone that used like a flat screen for a map, I was like, oh my gosh, this is that's a layer. Like every time something amazing happens, that creates another layer in the fandom. And we like to think we're another layer. Like we like to think that we're a part of that immersion revolution. That's not right, but whatever.
Kate Welsh said the other day on the Dragon Talk show, it's an amazing quote, which we should share on social media. She said that Sirenscape is like the seventh player at the table. It's like, oh,
that's
a nice thing.
So nice. Yeah, Vicky did put that up on social media. It is out there. So,
oh, good.
Yeah, super nice.
You just said the first time you saw someone with a flat screen. I'm just now imagining a big old CRT monitor sitting on the table, like kind of like on its back, and everyone's like sort of crowding around, kind of with their and it's curved, and the miniatures sliding up down the side. It works. It's not quite as good, and there's like each square is like only 17 pixels, so it's like just terrible.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I like that. All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for getting up early. Because I understand. Look, 7:30 is pretty early for me. So
for an artist musician, absolutely.
And definitely thanks for hanging out.
I didn't even know there was one of these at this end of the day. I was like, wow, that's cool. There's two. I don't know about the one where you're drinking alcohol at the end of the day and chips and stuff. There's like a bonus one. And I was like, Karen, can I have a drink? She's like, no.
Nah.
Maybe Australian, but you can't bloody drink at 7:30. She doesn't sound like that at all. No.
She really doesn't.
No, she doesn't. And a kangaroo jumped past and handed me a beer, and that's right. No, not really.
All right, let's do this. So we're gonna take a break, and then we're before we go, we'll definitely make sure to say goodbye to Ben. But we're gonna take a break. Steve and I are gonna come back, and we're gonna do a little bit of It Takes Two. Try to play that again. We tried before. Steve's connection wasn't the best, and he kept dying. But we're gonna blame his connection and not Steve. But here's the thing.
It was not those saw blades. It was the lag.
It was the lag. My controller's broken, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, Vicky, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. This is pretty late for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so Ben, thank you so much again. This was a lot of fun. I expect that we'll have you on again at some point because we know where to find you.
Very fun.
So
absolutely.
So yeah, definitely, let's do this again because it was a lot of fun to chat. So.